Hey all of you awesome adventurers. Today we're going to be covering a two-parter horror story with the help of Critical Kunic. If you haven't seen any of Kunic's videos, be sure to do so after you watch part 2. Anyway, this story is going to be about a furry who ended up ruining their game. Let's go ahead and jump into this RPG horror story. Lazy Furry DM spoils Icewind Dale. Part 1. Farts, Boredom, and Avalanches. By Edward Warren. I've been holding this in for a while now, but I really just need to get it off my chest. Recently, I had one of the worst D&D campaigns I have ever had. So bad, I just up and left in the middle of the second session. It's got all the classics. A toxic group, a rude and lazy DM, and a plain lack of organization all coming together to make an experience that might have otherwise been tolerable, downright unbearable. I was temporarily off work due to the 2020 shutdowns, and I was looking for something to kill some time. I went on Roll20 and found a group for Rime of the Frost Maiden right when the module came out. They had recently lost a member for some reason, and were looking to find a new player, as they were a few levels in. Excited to dive into something new, I put in an application. To my excitement, the DM messages me right away, and asked me to cook up a character with a backstory with plenty of hooks. My character was a human nobleman Pact of the Blade warlock. The ambitious, youngest son of a wealthy noble family, he was constantly looked down on by his stronger, older brothers. Knowing he would never surpass their skills as a warrior on his own, he started turning to mystical sources, looking for an edge. He ended up falling in with an elite dueling club with religious undertones, promising him untold power if he would dedicate himself to their inner mysteries. Young and foolish, he got in deeper and deeper with the cult, until he ended up being coerced into pledging his soul to their god. Surprise! It turned out the being they worshipped was actually a devil looking to corrupt members of the nobility into the service of the 9 hells. Luckily for him, he's smart enough to get an escape clause written into the contract. If he would pull off a service for the devil, he would be free from his obligation to it. The devil, having no intention of letting him go and wanting to make an example of him to the other souls he'd conned, tasked him with retrieving a long-lost artifact located somewhere in Icewind Dale. Despite it being an obvious suicide mission, my warlock set himself to the task and traveled north. Not the most original backstory, but I figured it had enough plot hooks to make it juicy. The favor for my patron could easily be tied into whatever dungeons were in the Dale, and there was potential for enemies, in the form of other cultists looking to get out of the deal, or bounty hunters sent by my family to take me home. Lots of fun stuff that could be brought to a sandbox campaign. He seemed sold on the idea, and agreed I'd be arriving in Icewind Dale on a ship, and waiting for word from my patron for the next steps in repaying my debt. The town would be the next stop the party would be visiting on their journey, so I'd be able to bump into them and get started. I show up for the first session, eager to see how my character story gets weaved into the narrative. Too bad, absolutely none of my work ended up being used. First session starts. 2 things happen off the bat that set me on edge. I found out the party's de facto leader is a DMPC, who just so happens to have the DM's name and be his avatar image. This is the sort of thing most stories on the subreddit are made of, but the game literally just started, and I had nothing better to do. So I told myself I was being judgmental and decided to give him a chance. I'd seen DMPCs done well before. Since I'm posting this story here, you can tell this was not a well done DMPC, but we'll get to that. Second thing that sets me on edge, everyone in the group is a furry. Now, I have absolutely nothing against any group of people, but the culture of the group had me put off almost immediately. As I describe my character walking into the inn the party was at, someone immediately interrupts me. Why is he a human? I'm sorry, what? Why is he a human? This is D&D, dude. You can be literally anything you want, and the best you could come up with is a human? I'm meeting the group for the first time, and the first thing they're doing is insult me for my character choice. I bite my tongue, and explain the character I'm playing is a nobleman from a human city in the Forgotten Realms. For him to be some sort of anthro-dogman would make absolutely no sense. Anyway, I'm branded the token human of the group. Already feeling more than a bit like an outsider, and the butt of the joke, I go ahead and make my in-character introduction, offering my services as an extra blade during a Yeti hunt. I'm told I can't come with them yet. Wait, why? From my verbal description to them, the group decides that the clothes I've described don't sound warm enough for Icewind Dale. The DMPC agrees. and since he's group leader, that's that. Apparently, my nobleman was too stupid and poor to have packed proper clothes for the Arctic before taking a several week-long trip to get there. Okay, how much money? Let's just trade up and we can go. Oh no. The whole party wants to come and get their own things, so the DM roleplays the store owner for an obnoxiously long amount of time. So we end up going to the shop, and I'm made to use all my starting cash and agree to do unspecific future favors for the shopkeeper before he finally sells the set I need to me. For a set of leather armor identical in function to what I was already wearing, but made of thicker leathers. And this is after haggling. Nearly an hour into the session, all I've managed to do is not just go broke, but get into debt to yet another shady guy. Absolutely riveting. No wonder they lost the last player, who they ridiculed multiple times for having raised these complaints, and then daring to quit on them. The quest itself is pretty straightforward once we get into it. Go out and kill a Yeti hiding in a cave at the top of a mountain. Except one thing. The DM claims that the book says we're supposed to be joined by a party of NPCs looking to kill the monster too. The DM, who has a very tired and droning sounding voice except when he's aggravated, sounds more and more bored as he's introducing these characters. Suddenly, he goes quiet, and then asks us to roll a dexterity check. Okay. A massive avalanche suddenly comes out of nowhere and almost sends us flying off the mountain. I barely make my save. DMPC, of course, makes his, off-screen, but a good portion of the party is already wounded and back at the bottom of the mountain. We're told all the NPCs were caught in the path of the avalanche and killed. I actually get interested again at this point. Wow, was this a part of the new module? These random events that could seriously wound the party? Something that showcases the cruelty and danger of the harsh wilderness. No. While we're all trying to regroup, he let slip his true reasons while in general being whiny about how the dice weren't fair for the rest of the party. He got halfway through introducing his NPCs, when he decided controlling them on top of doing the upcoming encounter was too complicated and boring, so it just worked better if they were dead. Why not just retcon them away? Same reason I had to roleplay getting scammed by a shopkeeper for nearly half an hour. He was dedicated to realism. The lazy bastard almost TPK'd us because he didn't want to have to do the extra work of controlling additional characters, and then whined about luck when he failed to consider if his asshole of a solution was something the party could survive. The actual Yeti fight was pretty straightforward. There were 5 of us, and there were only 2 monsters. Apparently that's an okay number for him to be bothered with playing, other than his brave, handsome, muscle-bound polar bear. We ended the session not long after that, but a few miscellaneous gems happened, particularly close to the end. He was pretty passive-aggressive with me for the entire session after the avalanche. We had found the Yeti's cave, and the Tabaxi Ranger wanted to do some investigation to see if he could find this thing and have us sneak up on it. DM goes quiet, and then asks her to roll. She rolls high. Okay. You find something. What do I find? Traces of the Yeti. Yeah, what kind of trace? Where is it? Well, it's the kind of trace you could hear it, or you could smell it, is the utterly baffling reply. It's clear he just doesn't want to tell us where he's hidden the monster in this cave so it can jump us. I decide to break the awkward tension with a joke. Is it a fart? Everyone got a good laugh, except our glorious polar bear leader. For the rest of the session, whenever he hears a stray noise over my mic while someone else is talking, he angrily stops everything to call me out for cutting people off, making me apologize before we can continue. Him and his buddies making fun of me for being token human is fine, but a single joke at his expense, and nuclear war is declared. He seems to sense our displeasure with the cop-out of the avalanche, because on the way down the mountain, he lets us check where the bodies fell. Miraculously, they were fine. Or at least, they were alive enough we could take them all back to town with us, on the back of the Tabaxi's pet bison, Appa. Yeah. So by the end, it's pretty clear to me why they're having trouble keeping players. I felt a bit bummed for having wasted my time, but was also morbidly curious for where we'd go from here. I was also curious why the other party members tolerated him, so I decided to come back for the next session to see what happened later, when we had some more chances to interact outside a mini dungeon crawl. Maybe because he tolerated their more unusual moments. That coupled with his trend of being actually so lazy, he doesn't even bother trying to be subtle or tell a story. Both worsened heavily during the second session, and is actually why I quit the campaign. But that's for another time. And that time is right now. If you want to hear part 2, you can click this link here. It will take you over to Critical Kunic's video. Thanks again, Kunic, for being able to do this video with me. It's always great to share these two-parters. Like I said at the beginning, if you haven't watched any of Kunic's videos, be sure to watch a couple for me. If you enjoyed the narration, please leave a like. That will do it for today. And until next time, hope you feel inspired.